everyone. I know this is the last one, so I'll try and keep it short so that everyone can go back home as soon as possible. Okay, let me try and get a hang of this. So I was told the first slide needs to be about me. I tried to make it quite minimal from a technology perspective because I'm sure you all have heard throughout the day a lot of technology, but just to give you a bit of background, I've been in technology for about 2 decades. I have worked across geographies, across industries, across products. In my other life, I am a published author. I love to paint, and I live in Berkshire with my 2 lovely girls and husband, pictures of whom are here. Now, let's start on the customer-centric journey. Now, recent data shows about 82% of the CEOs are investing in some sort of a digital business program. And this number is growing exponentially. What does that do for tech? It gives the CIO completely different meaning. It effectively means the CIO can work with the business and really build these digital strategies. Now, understanding the customer needs and the value proposition is possibly the most fundamental and the first step towards the customer centricity journey, the journey of customer centricity. I'll give you one of my favorite examples, Uber. Now, any company strategy can be either transformative or incremental. In Uber's case, it was both. Now, how technology came into play in Uber's case. If you guys remember, in London, we have black cabs, and my apologies for giving a very local example, but black cabs, the black cabbies had to be trained extensively because they had to memorize all the routes. As a result, black cabs were very expensive, and often we had to hail a cab. Then there were these different companies where you can call up and book a cab. Uber completely changed this because they removed this middleman. They digitized the space where you can book a cab through an app. It changed the way cab works. People didn't have to invest for months and years to do a course because they could do this part-time. They could do this after retirement. Anyone who had a car and a GPS, a little bit of training, could work with Uber. They changed the way how, because they focused on, they focused on the customer and what the customer wanted, which was effectively faster, shorter journeys, instead of somebody who memorizes all the routes. So they changed that completely and disrupted the demand and supply of the taxis. Then identifying the operating model priorities is how you tune your operating model based on your customer requirements. Again, if you look at Uber as an example, their app changed the way we worked. They gave more transparency to where the taxi was. You didn't have to call up the company and say where my cab is. You could track it on your app. Well, it was different way of looking because it was looked from a customer point of view. What do I need as a customer when I need to book a cab? I need to know where it is. How long will my journey would be? Uber did all of that on an app, and that was the first time when they sort of worked and tech worked with them. So if you look at the amount of difference which it created because the business and tech worked together was transformational. Then the other aspect for a customer-centric CIO is really to identify technology and people enablers. Now, technology enablers are, I think all of us know it very well. The underlying architecture needs to be scalable. It needs to be very secure. It needs to be simpler. But the important aspect are the people enablers, because it's the culture and the emotions of people. When you create a positive culture, the emotions are positive. And that's why people go that extra mile. They work that extra journey. Otherwise, even an organization which is negative, people still work hard because everyone wants to get their salaries. But the difference with a positive culture is people put that extra mile, they put that extra effort. And that's why as an organization, it's so important to create those positive cultures. Then growth. The employees need to feel that their career is going somewhere. Their career path is going somewhere. We are all leaders here. How many of you discuss with your employees on a regular basis where their careers are going? Someone? That's good. How often do you discuss that? That's great. That is great. You are an exception, and I'm really pleased because I'm awful at that as well. And mostly we discuss it either in the 6-month reviews or the yearly reviews. But that's a great thing if you're discussing monthly, because that gives that employee the satisfaction that their career is going somewhere. So as a CIO, if you create that culture, that employee will automatically work more towards a customer because they feel empowered. Then pivoting the technology delivery model, again, is very central. The funding mechanisms, the transformation, the change roadmap has to be completely aligned to the way the business operates. Now, these are the 5 key steps which I think are absolutely essential in the customer centricity journey. They're not in a particular order. Again, there'll be many more, but these are the 5 I thought I'll talk about. So we'll discuss each of them in detail. Now, becoming a customer-centric leader, Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, said that, customers are always beautifully and wonderfully dissatisfied. So if you look at Amazon, that's possibly the reason why that company is doing so well, because they are so focused on the customer. You even call up Amazon customer service. They're completely around the customer. It's like what you say, what you do. So to have that mindset is really important. And again, how can the CIO develop that mindset in their organization? What the CIO needs to do is really collaborate. The CIO is the leadership team. It needs to really collaborate with the business and understand the business, understand the needs of the business, understand the needs of the customer, and sort of then trickle that down to their own employees. And that's how the technology, because often in IT, in technology, we do a lot of work, but people don't know why they're doing it. So it's really the CIO and the leadership team who need to tell them the whys and how does it fit with the entire global operating model. So building alliances is obviously important. The CIO and the leadership team, if they build alliances with the business, they will get to know business priorities firsthand, rather than discovering it once things have been signed up, once the business has made the decisions. They can work with them to shape the strategy. CIOs who are close to the business are often the first ones to help them use the technology more effectively. Then changing mindsets. This is possibly one of the hardest things to do. Technology is very easy to change. Changing human beings is very different. And mindsets, because people either they've worked in the organization for a long time and would often say statements like, I've been here, I know how things work. This is how I've always done things. So changing that mindset, the easiest way is possibly to find a business champion and then work with them to create a vision, understand the BUs, understand the products, and understand the outcomes which the products are delivering. And then sort of work with your team to deliver deliver the technology aspects of it. And make your team don't tell the team that this is what you need to do. Make them accountable for the customer experience. They need to be responsible for how the customer is responding, and then let them do the hows. So one of the key things is tell us, the CIO and the leadership team need to tell their teams why, and not so much focus on the how, and let the team decide, let them be their owner of the work which they are doing. And this would sort of have a knock-on impact on repositioning IT as well. I mean, I firmly believe changing the mindset within IT is possibly the first step towards changing the mindset outside IT. Leading the business needs, obviously leading with the business needs in mind, it earns the trust of the business themselves, and they would collaborate with you a lot more than they would if you're just talking the tech language. It's a shift in the mindset from one of management to one of leadership. Rather than focusing on status quo, you focus on innovation. Rather than sort of being, playing defensive and saying this is how it works, you play offensive, saying, no, we can do things if you help us, if you work with us. So again, encouraging automation, encouraging innovation, encouraging growth, and how the customer can work with us is something which can make a leader as a more customer-centric leader. Like communicating your vision, I think one of the key things, no matter how strong a vision you have, but if it is not communicated, or no matter how strong a strategy you have, if it's not communicated, it's not understood by anybody. So it's as good as it doesn't exist. Now, as I said, CIO needs to articulate the why. And then how to deliver the vision sort of need to stem from the core values, the guardrails which you provide. Now, establishing a common frame of reference and letting the employees work on their own on that aspect. You provide the clear vision and outlines on how IT will deliver the value. You have clear tenets to guide how that needs to be delivered and clear goals to measure what success is like. Instead of instead of prescribing at every step, you guide your team at the every step in a very clear, concise way. Then focus on what needs to be delivered rather than what is possible. And one of the easiest ways of doing, I say it's easy, but it's one of the most effective ways of doing is working backwards. Start with what the customer wants and then sort of work backwards from there. Imagine, I mean, if any of you, I'm sure the businesses you work with, think about what does your customer want and then how can you achieve it. The chances are it'll be a mix of business and tech together. Within tech, it'll be multiple platforms. Even within multiple platforms, it could be multiple teams, multiple stacks. It's much easier to navigate this value proposition if you're going the other way around. I'll give an example of Amazon. In 2004, the retail growth was about 2%, and Amazon's growth declined. Does anyone has any idea what was the decline in the percentage? Any guesses? No? Their percentage declined 15% to 12%, where the overall retail was at 2% growth. One way of looking at it would have been that the market is competitors at 2%. We are at 12. We're still way above the average. But that wasn't what Amazon worked. They still focused on why the customer was not moving more towards online as opposed to going to the shop. I'll give you my example. My girl, my younger one, she's always last minute. Oh, Mommy, I've got this thing which I need. You need to buy me this t-shirt for day after tomorrow. I was like, why are you telling me the last minute? And now she's like, just order it from Amazon. We'll get it tomorrow. So you see, they changed that. They launched Amazon Prime in 2014, 2004. And that Amazon Prime, that one-day delivery and next-day delivery was launched in an 11-week window. That revolutionized the way we look at shopping. Why? Because that was the reason why people weren't going towards online shopping, because it took 5 days to deliver anything. So Amazon changed that. And that's one of the key examples I always give when we talk about working backwards. Now, creating a shared operating model, again, very fundamental. All of us here, and I would not restrict this only to the CIOs, all the leaders here are very familiar with the problems which arise when the business operating model and the technology operating model are not in alignment. And when a lot of times in the past, what I've seen is business focuses on one aspect, which is the customers or the products, and tech focused on delivering technology capabilities and operational excellence. As a result, they were doing different elements of the value chain, not really working towards the same outcome, which is where the problem starts. If you drive the forces, what did Amazon do? They had tech focus on that 5-day delivery slot, on the same-day delivery slot of how tech can support that. And that's why it's really key to align all your capabilities and objectives, have joint forces, have joint workforce and processes so that you all work towards a shared outcome. And once you have those outcomes, it will dramatize the way you sell to the customers. Again, I'll give another example. In 2007, Nokia had 50% of the share when it came to the mobile market. Apple had 0. By 2013, Apple had captured 40% of the mobile market and 50% of operating profit, which was, again, tremendous. Why? Because they looked at the customers. When you can touch something, why do you need to key in buttons? They completely merged their technology and business outcomes. They made the teams work together. And it created products which all of us love it. We all have iPhones. Can you imagine going back to Nokia and just clicking things? It's so difficult now because we've just got used to that culture. Who knows, tomorrow something else might come. So, but that's the strength of working with the business and working with the customer in mind. Then shifting to product thinking is, again, one of the fundamental principles for being customer-centric. Project thinking is very focused on output. I'm not saying projects don't work very hard. They work very hard, but they are focused on the fact that whether the project is being delivered on cost, on budget, and on time. The benefit realization, if at all it is done at the fag end of the project. Most of the times it's not done. People celebrate, oh, the project is over, thank God, because chances are the project team would have worked tirelessly day and night towards the fag end. And then towards the end, if at all somebody, but some people would do a benefit realization. Whereas that should be the reason, that should be the first thing to do, and that's why product thinking shifts. Because that's the first thing you start. You start with the benefit realization, and then you see how you can achieve it. That's the classic difference between your product and project thinking. Product thinking is focused on outcomes. So this shift, and then shifted to how we used to work with projects. Somebody in the business had some idea, they would create a case study, then there would be some funding allocated, it would be prioritized. IT will come in and they say, okay, this is too less, or the time is too less. Go through the whole process, deliver the project, and then the project team would disassemble. So you lose that knowledge. But with product thinking, you get the work to the team. Let the team decide. You said, this is the outcome I want. And then tell me what is it you need to do. And the team tells, these are the products which need delivering. So create I call them minimum lovable products. The reason it needs to be short sprints, shorter product, because that's something which is measurable. You can give it to the customer very quickly, they can test it, and you can fail fast. Learn from that failure. Instead of, well, most of the large organizations, if you look, they have years of analysis and design and discussions, and then something gets delivered to the customer, which, if at all the customer remembers when they had given the original requirements, is possibly they would use. So I think the key bit, again, is to use Agile as much as possible and deliver it in shorter measurable sprints, because you're failing fast and then you're learning it and applying it in the next sprint. Sorry. Aligning technology via shared business outcome, again, it's sort of in the continuation of the same principle. If you give the same outcomes to both the organizations, they're all working towards a common goal rather than working towards different goals. And flexibility, again, this is where my architecture team comes in very handy, because they are the people who need to build a very modular and secure architecture. Our customer base on the top cannot be done without them building a very modular and flexible and a safe architecture. So this, again, is because often if you go in very complex organizations, the teams would be like, we can't do this. It's because our systems are so complex. So first things is you need to have something which is very flexible and safe. And the last aspect, I saved for the last because it's the most difficult, again, is this involves human beings. Creating a customer-centric culture. Change is a process. It's a journey and not a destination, as the old saying goes. And there's a reason why is that, because it's also very hard. If you really look at the forces of inertia, literally in an organization, they establish processes, there are cultural resistance, there is existing infrastructure. There's just not willingness to change because you worked too long in a certain way. So to drag the organization outside of the status quo is very difficult. And that's why you need leaders who can really guide you by showing and not by just directing. So you need the CIO really needs to, and the leadership team, for example, they need to lead by example and not just say, okay, this is how you guys need to change. They need to show it in their day-to-day behavior as well. The other aspects, again, to drive sustainable change is diversity. You need to build diverse teams. When you're focusing on diversity, it creates a different environment of thought. People, now imagine the college graduate who comes out, somebody who's fresh out of college, they would be bubbling with ideas. They'll give all sorts of ideas all over the place. Then imagine somebody old and jaded like me, I would be just seeing risks in those ideas. Whereas, and that's why you need these two people together, because then they can balance it out. and pick up the best ideas possible. That's diversity. Diversity of cultures, diversity of people with different nationalities, different genders. Everyone brings a different point of view. And that diversity is really important to create that environment where you can move away from status quo. The other aspect is to embrace failure. If as a leader, I embrace failure and I learn from it and I tell my team it's okay to fail as long as you're learning from it, they would pass the same message to their team. Because you as a leader are embracing change. If as a leader, I get really mad about something which has failed, then that's the message I'm passing on to my team, that's saying, if you fail, it's a problem. So it's really, as leaders and CIOs, we need to embrace that culture, embrace that failure. And I always say that there's something wrong with my team members if you're not failing, because that effectively means you're not trying anything new. So if you're not innovating, that's the only way you don't fail, when you don't try anything new. You keep doing whatever you've been doing for years. So there's something fundamentally wrong there. So it's really important to fail, and it's really important to learn from that failure as well. Being a leader, it effectively means you need to sort of remove the obstacles and let your team do the running, not sort of push them every step of the way. So to end with, I would say customer centricity is not easy. It's a very difficult thing. It's a lot of shift in the mindset and the culture of the people, and not only establishing certain guardrails and principles, but the ROI for that is definitely worth it. So invest in it in your organizations, and definitely seek help if need be.